Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dodgy Punts AFL podcast, just the tips edition. Liam, I've deliberately gone early there so you get that in the recording that you can't edit out because it's the introduction. Unlucky. I'm Jesse. That's Liam. This is our special pocket preview edition of the round ahead. And can you believe it, Liam? We've reached round number 13. That's over halfway.
I every year I say this, and they say this as you get older, the years go faster and faster, Jesse. Like, obviously, they're not as fast for you as they are for me at this stage, but round 13 already blows my mind. Like, the fact that we are already halfway through this season is absolutely bananas. And I swear that every year is dictated by two things for me. One, how quickly WrestleMania comes around, and two, how quickly the AFL Grand Final comes around. And every year I feel like it's a hiccup, and it's here again. But round 13, we're already halfway through.
We sure are. I think we're going to have to celebrate after round 13 on the main podcast with a bit of a deep dive into how each team is going so far with some more buys out of the way.
But listen, Jesse, we keep making all these promises about deep dives into teams, about clumps. We're going to focus on one. I reckon the clumps are next. The clumps, maybe the coaches, deep dive into every team. That's a lot to offer, my friend.
Can we clump the coaches?
We can clump the coaches, sure. Let's clump them all together. It's fine.
If you don't know what we're talking about, neither do we. It's fine. Make sure you're following us on Instagram at Dodgy Punts. Of course, you're watching this on YouTube because that's the only place this part goes out on, so you can see us. Make sure you are liking, sharing, subscribing, hitting the notification bell. Also following us on your preferred podcasting platform for the main episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think we dive just about straight into this, Liam, after you give up an update onto how we went last week.
Oh, okay. Do I have to? I will.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. Last week was a interesting round. There was a few that Jesse and I differed on, and I think a few coin tosses across the weekend as well. And some went my way. Most of them went your way, which is fine. So 4 tips to you, putting you on 71. 3 to me, which puts me on 67. I'm now 4 behind you, Jesse. And we're in the bye rounds, which means there is no chance of me catching up anytime soon, unless I just go for broke, which is not the best idea just yet. We are not at round 20. If I get to round 20 and I'm still down by 7, that's it. I'm throwing things at the wall and hoping they stick. But right now, not yet. Not yet.
And we should just qualify as well for our viewers that those who haven't seen this show before, we do tip based on our better judgment, but there's an extra element to this tipping competition, Liam, because we have the luxury of having no other friends. So we can just tip against each other and play it quite tactically. I invited all of my friends to my birthday party, just like in primary school. And would you look at that? No one's turned up to this either. That's okay. Well, you're still here.
Did you offer fairy bread? Because if you don't offer fairy bread, ain't no one coming to your birthday party.
I offered fairy bread and Kirk's Cola Beer, not a sponsor, and no one came.
Whoa.
I know. It's a very sad life.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. On that delightful note, fairy bread, that's pretty nostalgic. You know, we can have one in this too. We may as well. Tell us a bit about nostalgia for our YouTube friends who may not have heard the main podcast this week.
Look, really quickly, my podcast, Nostalgia Bra, that I do with Mr. Rob Pollard, is available on Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. First episode proper goes up tomorrow or Wednesday today when this goes up as well. 2 in a day. 2 things of me in a day. But we go back and we deep dive into all the things from our past. Sega versus Nintendo, the great gaming divide of the 80s and 90s, Jesse. You weren't born yet, but that's what we're going to deep dive into in episode 1. So check it out, have a listen, and hopefully you'll join us there as well. Thanks for the plug, Jesse. Thanks for allowing me that time to plug Nostalgia Bro. I appreciate it.
That's okay. I vote Xbox One just for that competition.
We'll get to them. That's not for this episode. That's for later.
Well. Liam, you are behind both in terms of last round and overall, so you get the first pick. You can have the coin toss for your way. Would you like to pick the first game's tip first, or would you like to allow me to pick the first game's tip first, noting that we alternate throughout the round?
We do alternate tip for tat. I think last week when I deferred to you and you called me a coward really got to me, so I think this week I'm going to take the first pick. Just because, you know, I don't like being bullied by a man half my size. So I will go first. That's true, actually. That's
very
true.
Tall.
And I'm quite tall, yes. I'm quite tall. And like, just, it doesn't matter. Let's move on to Thursday night. Jesse, who's playing?
We have Adelaide versus Richmond at the Adelaide Oval. What an absolute turd salad of a game. Can we not tip this? If we both agree that this doesn't exist, can we just move on to the next game? Or do we have to talk about it?
No, we should talk about it. We should talk about it
Okay.
because, this goes to show that at the start of the year, potentially where the AFL thought these two teams were going to be. Maybe, or they were just trying to diversify and give everyone a fair shake. But actually, there's been plenty of Adelaide and Port Adelaide Thursday, Friday night games so far this year. I feel there's been.
I think
plenty
Adelaide
of
was a really good venue for it. I think it works logistically for Adelaide-based football supporters. It works time zone-wise as well with the East. I don't mind it. I mean, when both teams are going well, which only really one is this season, I think it's a really good formula, and I hope they do it again once we see both teams up and contending in that top 8 bracket.
Yep. Agree. But we have Thursday night to talk about. Like we said in the main pod, like Richmond are depleted. They are literally going to have to play some basketball player they picked up from the rookies last year, potentially. If Adelaide do not win this, then, and I know we say this a lot about some teams across the year, but if Adelaide do not win this, I don't know what else to say, but maybe there's going to be just one big old axe chop right at the top, I reckon. If they can't get this job done, something's definitely wrong. But I'm going to tip Adelaide because I am confident that they can get this win, especially at home. Jesse.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. It's very much a season-defining game for Adelaide. Probably not the scenario they thought they'd be in, defining their season against 17th place in round 13 this year. They probably would have been looking at, top 4, top 8 type divide as opposed to bombing out and looking at a top 5, top 6 draft pick going into the off-season. So really important game. I think they were poor against Hawthorn. They were excellent against West Coast in a real ghastly game a fortnight ago. But where are they? Richmond, if you average it out, I'm actually happy to say Richmond have had the better fortnight. They were very good against Essendon in Dreamtime of the G, and they were solid for 3 quarters against Geelong at Goomba before, again, injury starts to hold. Yes, I know that Adelaide had a 99-point win in there, but at the same time, Richmond are on bare bones and took it up to 2 sides in the top 8 for the majority, probably about 7 quarters worth of that 8. In saying that, Adelaide really should get the job done. This is a case of if football's played on paper, when you line up 22 versus 22, Adelaide get the job done just about every time. Let's hope that rings true for the sake of our tipping. Could use some points. I think Adelaide can get the job done here. But I do really hope that Richmond do serve it up to them.
Well, that's what I mean. They're definitely in the nothing to lose category at the moment, Richmond. And they've been serving it up to every team they play because they literally have nothing to lose, except more players, apparently. Just injuries aplenty. Anyway, let's move on.
Elimination final in round 13 as well. So we're really stacking up the points to prove derby so far. This time it's Friday Night Football, Western Bulldogs versus Brisbane at Marvel Stadium. I don't think the Western Bulldogs are going to leave Marvel Stadium again. They seem to have set up a little embassy in the change rooms, just won't leave. Good for them. And,
they're there next week as well. They're there next week as well.
They probably start renovating, start painting the seats as well. Such is the strength of their hold over Marvel at the moment. But look, this is a real sense of one team, particularly the away side here, can drop out of contention if they do not win this game. And I think that's going to happen. I think this is the pin to the balloon that is Brisbane's premiership hopes this year, which, to be fair, are already deflated, more so their finals hopes. I think this is it. I think Western Bulldogs will get the job done here. Friday night lights at Marvel, and that is it for Brisbane. I think Fagan splutters through a couple more rounds, and then he's gone by round 20. And Brisbane start a real dilemma of, we just paid Hugh McCluggage $1 million a season for the next 7 years. We have a bunch of big contracts on our books, but we're not playing very well. Where to from here? So Brisbane, for me, I don't think we'll get this job done, so I'm going to go with the Western Bulldogs. Liam, this is a knife's edge game. You are 4 points behind me. How are you playing this?
Look, I think I'm. I had a bit of a reflection of sorts in the last few weeks, where I've been trying to kind of go balls to the wall and maybe not thinking about this properly. Half the season is still to go, so I don't have to do anything drastic just yet. I think I started putting. I'm reactive, right?
I got reactive. You very well.
Well, that's the thing. You probably know my personality pretty well, and you know that I'm pretty reactive. I'm just like, yeah, I'll get going, I'll do it. No stress. Yeah.
Vibes.
Vibes, yeah. The vibes are still going. The vibes are still alive, my friend. Vibes are still alive. But I think for this one here, the Bulldogs, I saw on the couch, they were talking about some of the teams that are contending this year. Sydney, by far up and away in the defense and attack columns. Right behind them, though, is the Western Bulldogs. So I think they're having a better year than we're probably letting them on. So I too am tipping the Western Bulldogs. I think it would be huge for the Lions to win. I think 11th versus 13th is actually quite flattering to the Lions the way this season has been going.
Yes.
But the Bulldogs, I think, are on the charge to the top 8. So Bulldogs for me as well at Bulldog Stadium. Sorry, Marvel Stadium.
That's okay. It's changed names about 46 times in the 24 years of operation, so we can give you a pass on that.
Still colonial to me.
Kazales. That was the original, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Telstra Dome. It's Telstra Dome to me. Or Etihad. I'll accept Etihad.
Telstra Dome and Etihad are the two that I like as well. I'm with you there, man. I'm with you there.
Bit of bonus nostalgia. You can even clip that. Chuck that in nostalgia, bro. Get my garish balding face on nostalgia, but why not? Moving on to the Saturday games, we have a suite of 3 to go through, starting in the lovely summery June conditions in Tasmania, and by that I mean it's probably going to be 4 degrees for Hawthorn versus Greater Western Sydney. First of all, stop sending non-Victorian teams to Tasmania. It makes me really cross. Obviously,
it does make you cross.
Hawthorn own that right. Take someone else down with them. It's very silly. I don't like it.
Yes.
In saying that, I'm going to stop complaining because you're up first here, Liam. You've got strong vibes with Hawthorn. We've had to erode our vibes with GWS. How are you approaching this?
It's a tricky one, right? Because at the moment you've got Hawthorn who are playing amazing football. It's so fun to watch them. We say this every week. It's really fun to watch them. But last week I tipped them to have a bit of a downfall and they didn't do it. Now they're playing much better opposition in the Greater Western Sydney Giants, who themselves are starting to play to kind of keep themselves kind of above that 8 clump. They're trying to the clump fighting for the 8, right? So it's an important game for them too, and it's a winnable game for the Giants. Hawks are playing like they've got nothing to lose. The Giants are playing like they should be playing like they have to win this game. I'm going to, against my better judgment, I'm going to tip the Giants because I think they've got the better side to do it. I think Hawthorn have been playing phenomenal football, but I think this is just going to be just a team too far for them. I think this week is my gut feeling. So I'm going to jump off the vibe train at Giant Stadium, even though I'm not playing there, and I'll get back on next week potentially. I'm probably going to buy next week, but Giants for me.
Choo. Look, I tend to agree. I get the sense that Hawthorn are playing excellent football. And while there's now all of a sudden this possibility they could make top 8, they don't necessarily need to this year to have a successful season. GWS, and I put them in 9th in our preseason predictions because I wasn't sold on them across the ground. They started like they were going to be minor premiers. Right now they're going like they want Harley Reid 2 and want to participate in Tankapalooza 24. They're not going well. In saying that, a fortnight ago against Geelong at Kahumba was a welcome return to form for them. They're going to have a new contract bounce with Sammy Taylor, committing until about 2045 based on that deal. They'll probably have to bury him at NG with the length of that contract. It's a massive get for GWS. What a brilliant piece of recruitment by them to lock down, in my opinion, one of the top 3, if not the singular top best defender in the competition. While we're talking about Victorian clubs pining over bigger money offers for inferior defenders in free agency this year. Great get for GWS. I think they've got enough here. And while I very much respect Hawthorn, and as anyone who listens to us regularly will know, I'm very hot on them this year. I get the sense that while I poo-pooed Liam for saying they're going to have a down week last week, I'm almost going to just copy and paste his comments into here for this week. I just get the sense that this might not be the right set of circumstances for them. So I'm going with GWS. I was hoping you'd tip Hawthorn for obvious reasons. I like winning. But this is going to be a really good game. I'm hoping to catch a bit of this actually on Saturday.
Of all the Saturday games, this is definitely the one I want to probably watch any of, to be honest with you. Oh, actually, that's not true. That's not true because
Spring Bowl.
This next game I might want to watch actually a little bit of. I might want to watch this. Yeah, it's not even Spoon Bowl. You can't call it that because the Eagles are playing.
That's true. Spiritual Spoon Bowl. We have West Coast versus North Melbourne at Optus Stadium, 2:35 p.m. bounce down. I get to go first here. No, it's not going to be North Melbourne before anyone gets excited. Look, this is a game that I think West Coast have to win. It's a game that they've looked at the start of the year when they were probably thinking 2-3 wins and circled North Melbourne at home as a must-win. Now, things have changed for West Coast since that time. Since the Western Derby in April, things have changed demonstrably for the West Coast Football Club. However, one thing remains the same. They need to be beating the sides around them. This is not a strong draft class. There's no Harley Reid level incentive to not play well. I think they just have to get it done here. They're at home. The weather will be interesting because I think it's going to rain in Perth all this week. That may add an extra layer of complexity. Of course, 2003 at Subiaco Oval between these two sides saw one of the greatest mud spectacles of all time. Drew Petrie, long sleeve came off brown from head to toe covered in mud.
I miss a good mud spectacle. We don't see them anymore because the ground's drained too well.
Why don't we just play outside Optus? Play it outside Optus where they tried to put the WA Day Festival. I'm sure that'll go down well. They'll be swimming in mud. But no, look, West Coast for me, they should have enough here. Key players will be interesting for them. Does Tim Kelly come back? Does Jack Waterman come back? Does Harley Reid get off suspension? That's live at the Tribunal at the time of recording this episode.
I was just checking to see if there's been any updates on that, and so far, no updates at this point in time.
But the question for North is, on their perspective, is much like West Coast would have had 2 or 3 games circled in their calendar, they would have done the same for this game. They have to win. They have to. Because the further into the 30s we go for the 1 in 3's X games, the more dark the storm clouds come. We talked about equalisation, Liam, in the main podcast this week. North Melbourne's name was front and centre of that in terms of what do we do with these Victorian clubs either on or off field who are struggling. You know, they need, for their own benefit, to start getting results on the field because, you know, if we're saying it, the drums are going to start beating elsewhere as well. Eddie Maguire's already had a couple of dips at North in the last couple of years about relocation or folding. They were meant to go to Gold Coast 15 years ago. That was meant to be them. They need to start winning games. I'm tipping West Coast. I'm hoping I see something from North. They have to show something for me, Liam. Have to.
Yeah, I agree. God, I'm toying with it though.
Go on.
I think.
Go on.
No. I want 30 seconds of silence from Jesse Dart, please. I want to. Not one of this. Go on, mate. Do it. You can. No, I think honestly, I think this is actually if Harley doesn't get off, is Waterman okay? Have we got any news on Waterman? Like, was he out?
I haven't heard any news on Waterman.
Because put it this way, if Kelly's out and Harley's out and Waterman's out, it makes this game a lot more even than it probably should be. What's he showing me?
Not working.
Were you trying to show me something?
I was trying to make you go to the screen. You can cut that out. Now it actually looks like something that's not appropriate for YouTube. That was not by design either, might I add. That's just a rather bad fail. A technological fail.
No, I think that North Melbourne have the best chance this week, but I too am going to tip the Eagles because they really should win based on current form. But like I said, if we did this on like Thursday morning, which we can't do obviously for logistical reasons, and we had a better idea of what the teams were going to be, maybe I might change this. But at this stage, I have a feeling Harley's going to get off. I've got a gut feeling that he will.
No, don't be daft.
But, you know, I don't want to be daft, but I just have a feeling like we'll see. But this is North's best chance, but I'm going to stick with the Eagles as well. Jesse, next game.
Fair enough. Do we have to? Saturday Night Football, St Kilda versus Gold Coast at Marvel Stadium. Are you kicking off here? Am I kicking off here? I've lost track.
Let's have a look.
Score review. You started. This is you again. You're
it's
starting.
Me again. Yep. This is me.
Who do you want? Do you want the Marvel Merchants or the allergic to Melbourneites?
Who do I want? Who do you want? Tell me now. I am tipping the Suns. I think this is going to be the one. I think it's going to be the one they're going to get away from home and watch them lose by 85 points. I will say nothing else. Jesse, your tip, please.
Yeah, Gold Coast. If they can't beat St Kilda in Melbourne, they're never going to win a game in Victoria. North and tell them up. St Kilda are going terribly. Look at their recent games, score-wise, outside of West Coast. They barely put a dent in the scoreboard against the likes of Fremantle and also Hawthorn. They just, at Melbourne as well, they're just not a good side. Gold Coast should be able to get the job done here.
And the Suns have a really potent forward line. It's getting more and more potent by the week, it seems. Yeah, it's fun. It's potent. So, let's see how they go against the brick wall that is the St Kilda defense and their entire game plan. Hopefully, it stands up and they can get through it, punch through it, and get a win. Suns for both of us. Now, Jesse, we've got through the Thursday, we got through Friday, we got through Saturday. Now we have 3 games to end the week: 2 on Sunday, 1 on Monday, that are destined to be crackers. Let's start with Sunday, shall we?
Yes, because otherwise it'd be illogical and out of order and wrong. Sunday, we start with Sydney versus Geelong at 1:20 p.m. at the SCG. First versus third. I get to go first here. Look, 3 weeks ago, I'm probably tipping Geelong in this game. Honestly, I'm probably tipping Geelong in this game. But Sydney are just faultless at the moment. They're a faultless side. They're winning games. They've just secured multiple players on longer-term contracts. There's a buzz about the Swans this year. They're a professional, well-organised side who played the weird, bastardised shape of the SCG very well. Happy to go with them. Liam, are you agreeing or disagreeing? Noting we haven't disagreed yet and we legally have to at some point.
That's fair. This probably isn't the one. I'm actually stunned to see that Geelong is still in third, to be honest with you. Like when I saw the website just then, I was like, first versus third. Geelong have not had a good run the last month or so. So to have them still in third shows the power of their really strong start and how far that went for them. That said, it's really hard to tip against Sydney, especially at the SCG, especially with the footy they're playing at the moment. Sydney, for me, not much more to say about the best team in the league at the moment. Jesse.
Concur, and moving swiftly on to Sunday night, this should be a fantastic game. Essendon versus Carlton at the MCG. Should be 90,000 in the house. There's so much to like about these big Victorian clubs playing each other, and that's coming from a West Australian who complains about big bias till the cows come home, but this is why it's still very much a Victorian-centric league. When these two clubs and clubs in this ilk get together for these type of games, you clear your schedule. Oh, yeah. And it helps that both these sides are flirting with the top 4. One's obviously in the romantic relationship. The other one is sending some super likes on Tinder, not a sponsor, to try to get in there. Liam, you're up first here for the final time in round 13. You kick us off with a tip. Who are you going with and why?
I still think that Essendon is a little bit inflated at second at the moment. I think that the wins they've got have been pretty, I'm not going to say easy because it's hard to win a game of AFL footy no matter who you play. But when you look at the teams and the quality that they've beaten so far this year, I can't think of maybe one that's of the quality of Carlton, unless you can correct me, Jesse. But I think most of their wins have come against lesser opposition. Carlton are a good team and play the MCG very well, and will probably still have half the crowd, even though it's an Essendon home game. I'm going to go with the Baggers. I'm going to go with the Blues. I think they're going to get this win and put themselves back towards the top of the table where we had them at the start of the season. A little bit of a blip for a few weeks, but I think they're back on the winning end of things. Jesse.
Yeah, this is going to be a really boring round of just the tips. Carlton for me as well. I concur with you, Liam. Essendon's game management is something we talk about a lot on this podcast, and it is phenomenal. But I just have a reservation now they've lost a close one. What that does for them psychologically. They come back down from Gold Coast or from the Gold Coast on a 7-day break, have to play against a side that, I think there's probably ladder position hasn't flattered them, and they've lost winnable games at times this year. They've also won winnable games at times this year, so I'm expecting a brilliant game. I don't think more than probably 2.5 kicks decides this either way. But yeah, I agree, Liam, with you. Carlton should have enough in the locker, I think, pound for pound, to get the job done here. If Essendon do win this game, though, and that is definitely a realistic scenario, they have to be considered legitimate premiership threats. They go from, they've had a good start, they're beating, they're flat track bullies, to, okay, we have to take them seriously now. Properly.
I agree. Yeah. Good call. I agree. Like, that's the thing. Like, that's part of what I was saying. Like, I'm not too sure if they've beaten of note this year. If they do this, yeah, that's somewhat of note. We're going to start talking. We're going to start talking the Bombers and them winning their first final in 20 years. Not even just a grand final, just any final in 20 years, which I'm sure everyone would love to see. I'm sure. All right, let's move it on. Last game of the round. Let's do it.
That's right. The Boomtown Rats said they don't like Mondays, but I certainly do when these two sides play on the Queen's King's birthday holiday. That is Collingwood versus Melbourne at the MCG. It's the big freeze at the G. Not many games take on one identity at the time Queen's birthday and then morph into something arguably bigger than football with the big freeze at the G. Yeah. This has become a must note. It's hard for us West Australians having work on Mondays when this is going on, but it's such a special part of the calendar. It's something that I'm looking forward to, having an eye on periphery wise and as much as I can throughout the day. This should be a fantastic game. You've got a side that is depleted physically, but is battling on gallantly against all odds, versus a side that is stacked, yet playing some pretty horrible football in the last month. That's an interesting dynamic. Mm-hmm. And when my back's against the wall in the last couple of years, I want Craig McRae to be the man covering it. So Collingwood for me, there's enough there. They were good. They were excellent against the Western Bulldogs. I don't think the scoreline was fair to them, losing that game by 3 goals. I think it was a goal loss, realistically, with how well they played. In many ways, they probably should have won. But they've got something about them. They need key players back desperately, and they can't afford to have key players out for much longer as it augments around that 12th to 6th group, that clump, if you will. So they need these players back, but we're talking about the here and now. Melbourne, I do feel like they may be a little bit shell-shocked after Sunday and Alice. That was dreadful. One of the worst performances I've ever seen from an alleged contending team. Mm-hmm. They have to arrest that. They could have been as high as 3rd with a win on Sunday. They're now sitting 10th. They're on the outside looking in. They need to get themselves back in the shop window. Collingwood, same situation, but with far more excuses. And I think less to prove. And with less to prove in a game like this, I think that's the way I want to go. Liam, how are you taking it?
That's fair. I mean, it goes to show how close this season is this year. The fact that, Melbourne can go from maybe being 3rd to drop all the way to 10th on the back of a terrible, terrible performance. But you mentioned something in there that says, like, the list that Melbourne has should be good enough to play and win games of football. Jake Lever is not one guy who's going to cause a 100-point loss, which I saw some of the narratives out there for their loss against Fremantle being
terrible.
So bad, man. Just so bad. Like, very little credit for Freo, mostly just going up like, oh, Jake Lever's not playing. Melbourne are going to lose by 100 points. That's not how football works, everybody. Sometimes you got to give credit where credit's due. Anyway.
No, don't be silly. We're not Victorian.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Naughty. You silly boy.
So it's interesting because Collingwood, I won't repeat everything you've said, but essentially, Collingwood are depleted. Melbourne do have a team that can beat any team on any given day. They're going to want to come back out after this and really prove themselves and be like, right, we're not the team that turned up against Freo. They had to travel to Alice Springs. So, that's probably that's twice the amount of travel they've probably done all year. Because,
no business class either.
No business class.
Not in the collective bargaining. Sorry, guys.
No. Sorry, guys. But that said, let's do it, Jesse. Let's have one different. I'll jump on the D's bandwagon this week. So we've got at least one differ. Could come to serve me well. Could come to put me 5 behind. That's okay. Whatever. Have some stakes in it. Have a go. It's fine.
Well, that brings us to the end of a Dodgy Punts AFL podcast, just the tips edition. Liam, it's always a pleasure to join you on a Tuesday to run through the round it is. It makes me think. It switches my brain on. Now, I'm going to do what every true West Australian will do, go and angrily tweet about Harley Reid at the Tribunal and how it's so corrupt and he deserves a rising star. I'm Jesse. That's Liam. That was just the tips. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
And no Port Adelaide or Freo, as you would have noticed. They're not playing this week. We forgot to mention that. Bye.
Bye-bye.